Imagine taking a walk in London today. You might find yourself on a street named London Wall, where parts of ancient Roman fortifications can still be seen. These strong walls were built almost 2,000 years ago to protect the city. They stand as a quiet reminder of its very old past. But if you look up, you will also see very tall, modern buildings made of glass and steel. These shining towers reflect the busy world of today's finance. This striking mix of the extremely old and the very new is a key part of London's identity. For example, at Tower Hill, you can actually touch stones that were part of walls from 2,000 years ago. These very stones have seen huge fires and have been rebuilt many times. London is not like a quiet museum where everything stays the same, safe from time. Instead, it is more like a living thing that breathes, grows, and constantly changes. This incredible city has faced its end and been reborn many times over, perhaps more often than any other large city on Earth. The real secret to London's long-lasting power and special identity is not just about what has managed to survive. It is also, very deeply, about what was destroyed. London's long history is written in ash, in the smoke from fires, and in the broken parts of old buildings. It is a story full of big disasters and then amazing recoveries. Whole neighborhoods were completely ruined, but then people created new ideas for them and rebuilt them. This ability to change so much is what makes London truly special. It teaches us that the city's strength comes not from keeping everything exactly the same, but from its power to transform itself. For 2,000 years, London has learned an important lesson. To survive, it must always be ready to change, sometimes in very big and difficult ways. It might feel like the city is falling apart during these times, but then it always rises up again, often stronger and different than before. This never-ending cycle of destruction and rebuilding, of challenges and new beginnings, is at the heart of London. It is a place that never stops moving forward, always adapting, growing, and creating its own future. London is a city that truly reinvents itself time after time. 2. The first city. Around the year 47 AD, Roman builders came to a good place on the River Thames. They chose this spot because the river was narrow enough for a bridge, but deep enough for big ships. This meant goods could easily come in and go out. It was a perfect place for trade and moving things, connecting new Roman Britain to other parts of the Roman Empire. Soon, a town called Londinium grew quickly. In just 10 years, it became a busy port. People from many different lands came here. There were merchants from Gaul, Germania, and places far away like North Africa. They all came to buy and sell. By 60 AD, 10 to 20,000 people lived in Londinium. It was a city where people traded slaves, metals like tin and lead, and many manufactured goods. Ships brought olive oil from Spain, wine from Italy, and nice pottery from Gaul. But this growth did not last long without trouble. In the summer of 60 AD, a fierce queen named Boudica led a rebellion. She was the queen of the Iceni tribe. Her husband died, and Roman leaders treated her very badly. They hurt her and her daughters and took her land. This made Boudica very angry. She gathered a large army, perhaps 120,000 warriors. First, they attacked and destroyed a Roman town called Camulodunum, killing everyone there. Then Boudica and her army moved towards Londinium. The Roman governor Gaius Suetonius Paulinus saw that he could not defend the city. So he made a hard choice. He left Londinium. Boudica's forces then burned the entire city to the ground. Many people who could not run away were killed. Today, if you dig deep under London, you can still see a layer of burnt red earth. This shows where the first city was destroyed. It is said that around 70,000 people died in the cities Boudica attacked. However, the Romans did not give up. After they defeated Boudica's army in a big battle, they decided to rebuild Londinium. The new city was bigger and stronger than before. It covered twice the area of the old town. The Romans built large public buildings, like a huge meeting hall and a marketplace. They also built an amphitheater for shows and public baths for people to wash. Around the year 200 AD, the Romans added something very important, a strong wall. This wall was made of stone and was more than 3 kilometers long. It stood 6 meters high and was 2.5 meters thick. Building it needed about 85,000 tons of stone. This big wall protected the city for many, many years. This was the first time London was destroyed and then rebuilt. It became a more planned and defended city. This showed how London could change and survive, a pattern that would happen many times again. 3. A new start. The Romans left Britain in 410 AD. After they left, their big city, Londinium, became empty. By the end of the 5th century, the grand Roman buildings stood broken and silent. The Forum was quiet, and the amphitheater was covered in plants. Londinium became like a ghost town, full of old memories. New people came to Britain from other lands. These were the Anglo-Saxons. They saw the old Roman ruins, which they called the work of giants. But they chose not to build inside the crumbling Roman walls. Instead, they built a new town for trade about 1 mile west of the old city. This new town was named Londonwick. It was in the area where Covent Garden is today. The old walled city remained mostly empty for a long time. Later, around the 9th century, Viking warriors often attacked England. These attacks made people feel unsafe outside the old walls. In 886, a strong leader named Alfred the Great decided to act. He moved people back inside the strong old Roman walls for safety. He renamed this refortified city Londonburg. Slowly, the medieval city began to grow within the ancient Roman perimeter. It filled with wooden houses, churches, and narrow, winding streets. This layout would be typical for London for the next 800 years. A very important change happened in 1066. This was the year of the Norman conquest. William the Conqueror came from Normandy and took control of England. He knew that to rule England, he needed to control London. William made a deal with the city. He would let them keep their old rights and govern themselves. However, William did not fully trust the people of London. So he built 3 castles to watch over the city. The most famous one was the White Tower, which began construction around 1070. It was finished about 20 years later. This huge tower rose high above the eastern edge of the city. Its walls were very thick, a clear sign of Norman power. It showed everyone that the Normans were there to stay, and London would follow their rule. Despite this show of power, the city grew and became richer under Norman rule. A new, very large St. Paul's Cathedral started to be built in 1087, becoming a major part of the city. By the 14th century, powerful groups of merchants, called guilds, became very important in London. These guilds were associations of people who did the same kind of business, like selling cloth, merciless's, food, grocers, or making things from gold, goldsmiths. They had a very tight control over all trade in the city. If you wanted to do business in London, you had to be a member of a guild. The guilds set prices for goods, checked the quality of products, made sure contracts were kept, and helped solve arguments. They became so rich and had so much influence that they effectively ran the city's government. Members of these guilds were chosen for important jobs in the city. They even wore special clothes at royal events to show their importance. The Guildhall, a large building constructed between 1411 and 1440, still stands today as a reminder of the Guild's great power and influence in shaping the city. 4. A great sickness. In the year 1348, a terrible sickness came to London. This disease was known as the Black Death. It arrived in the autumn months and quickly began to spread. The city was full of narrow, crowded streets, and many places were not very clean. These conditions helped the sickness move quickly from one person to another. The Black Death was very powerful and deadly. It caused a huge number of deaths in London. Sadly, about 1/3 of all the people living in the city died because of this sickness. This means that if you counted 3 people, one of them would have passed away. The disease moved with terrifying speed, meaning people often became sick and died within a few days. This brought great sorrow and fear to every part of London. Many homes lost family members, and the city struggled to deal with so much loss. After the sickness passed, London faced many challenges. So many people had died that there were not enough workers for all the jobs. This big change deeply affected the city's economy. Before the Black Death, workers did not have much power. But now, because there were fewer people to work, those who survived suddenly became very important. They could ask for higher wages and better conditions for their labor. The price of labor went up a lot. Some reports from that time show that wages for workers in England doubled between the years 1350 and 1450. This was a very big increase for ordinary people. The government tried to stop these changes. In the year 1351, a law called the Statute of Laborers was made. It tried to keep workers' pay at the old, lower levels. It also tried to stop people from leaving their jobs to find new, higher-paying ones. However, it was hard to make everyone follow this new law. The surviving workers now had a new kind of power. They could bargain more strongly. This began to change the way London society worked. The old feudal system, which was already becoming weaker, lost even more of its strength. The Great Sickness did not destroy London physically, but it forced the city to change and grow in new ways. It created chances for ordinary people to improve their lives and move up in society, something that was very difficult before. Through these changes, a new kind of London, focused more on business and trade, slowly started to appear. 5. Fire and stone. In the year 1665, London faced a terrible sickness. This was the Great Plague. It killed many people, about 1/5 of everyone living in the city. In less than 18 months, around 100,000 Londoners died. At its worst, in one September week, 7,000 people lost their lives. Rich people and the king left the city, but poor people had to stay. They died in large numbers, and bodies filled mass graves quickly. Then, barely a year later, in 1666, another disaster struck. This was the Great Fire of London. It started on a Sunday, September 2, at 3 in the morning, in a bakery on Pudding Lane. The fire spread very fast. Most houses in London were made of wood and were built very close together. Strong winds from the east pushed the flames across the dry buildings. A man named Samuel Pepys saw the fire from the start. He woke up when a servant told him about a blaze. At first he thought it was far away. But later that morning he saw over 300 houses had already burned. Pepys watched the disaster from the river. He wrote in his diary about people trying to save their things, throwing them into the river. Poor people stayed in their houses until the fire touched them, then ran to boats. He even saw pigeons that did not want to leave their homes. Some had their wings burned and fell down. By Tuesday, September 4, the fire was at its strongest. It reached Cheapside, a wide street, and then moved toward St. Paul's Cathedral. People thought the big stone church would be safe, but they were wrong. The cathedral had wooden scaffolding around it because of building work. This wood caught fire and the lead roof melted, flowing down the street like a river. The old medieval church then fell into ruins. When the fire finally stopped on September 6, the damage was huge. 13,000 houses were destroyed, along with 87 churches. The Guildhall was burned inside, and St. Paul's was a smoking shell. Only 1/5 of the old medieval city was left standing. Sadly, many poor people died, though official records said only 6. King Charles II quickly wanted to rebuild London. There were many big plans, including one by Christopher Wren. He wanted a new city with straight, wide roads and a grand domed cathedral. But this plan was too difficult to follow because of old property rules, the urgent need for homes, and high costs. So the new city followed the old street plan, but with new rules. All new buildings had to be made of brick or stone, not wood. This made the city safer from fire and healthier. Christopher Wren, the architect, built 52 new churches in the burned areas. He created a new classical English style. His most famous work was the new St. Paul's Cathedral. Building started in 1675 and finished in 1711. Its great dome became a symbol of London's strength and its refusal to give up after such a big disaster. 6. A big empire. After the Great Fire, London began to grow even more. In the 1800s, it changed from a large city into a global city. Britain's empire was growing bigger across the world, and much money came into London. This money helped to build many new and beautiful places. For example, elegant terraced houses were built around green garden squares. Places like Grosvenor Square and Russell Square became popular. These new areas in the west of the city offered a new way of living, with nice homes and green spaces for wealthy people. But the biggest changes came in the Victorian era, named after Queen Victoria. When she became queen in 1837, London had about 1 million people. By the time she died in 1901, the city's population had grown to more than 6 million. London was now the biggest city on earth. It was also the very heart of the British Empire, which stretched across the world. Everything important for the empire, from trade to money, happened in London. However, this fast growth brought big problems. There was a huge difference between the rich and the poor. Beautiful squares stood only a few blocks from very poor areas. Many families lived in small, crowded rooms without clean water or good toilets. The money from the empire made some people very wealthy. But many factory workers lived and worked in terrible, unhealthy conditions for very little pay. A famous writer, Charles Dickens, wrote many books about these problems. His stories, like Oliver Twist, showed how hard life was for poor children and factory workers. He made people see the injustices that were part of London life during that time. His writing gave a voice to those who were often ignored. London's old systems could not handle so many people. By the 1850s, the city's waste system had completely broken down. The River Thames, which many people used for drinking water, became like a giant sewer. In the summer of 1858, the smell was so bad that people called it the Great Stink. Members of Parliament, whose offices were next to the river, had to pass new laws quickly to fix the problem. The city turned to a clever engineer named Joseph Bazalgette. He designed a huge new sewer system. This amazing project, finished in 1875, had thousands of miles of smaller sewers that fed into larger main tunnels. These tunnels carried waste far away from the city. Bazalgette's system worked very well. It made London much cleaner and stopped terrible diseases like cholera, which had killed many people before. The Victorian age also gave London another great invention, the world's first underground railway. On January 10, 1863, the Metropolitan Railway opened. It ran for 4 miles between Paddington and Farringdon. On its first day, more than 30,000 passengers rode in gaslit wooden carriages pulled by steam trains under the city streets. The air was not clean, but the underground train was a big success. Later, in 1890, the first deep tube lines opened. These trains went even deeper under the ground without digging up the streets. In just 20 years, many more tube lines were built, creating the start of London's underground system we know today. These new systems, the sewers, the underground, and the busy docks that handled millions of tons of goods, were vital. They helped London to work as the center of global trade, moving people, goods, and money across the world more easily than ever before. 7. The Big War. London faced a great test during World War II called the Blitz. German planes began bombing on September 7, 1940. For 57 nights, attacks continued. Then, until May 1941, bombings happened sometimes. The Blitz caused huge damage. Over 43,000 people died. 2 million homes were broken or damaged, 60% in London. The worst night was May 10th to 11th, 1941. More than 500 German planes dropped over 700 tons of bombs. Nearly 1,500 people died and 11,000 homes were destroyed. Key buildings like the House of Commons and the British Museum were badly hurt. St. Paul's Cathedral stood strong, a symbol of London's refusal to surrender. Londoners showed great strength, called the Blitz spirit. People learned to live with danger, finding shelter in deep underground stations which became nighttime sleeping places. In mornings, people walked through rubble to work. Shops often displayed "more open than usual" signs, even after blast damage. Hundreds of thousands of volunteers, like air raid wardens and firefighters, helped the city. The King and Queen walked through bombed areas to comfort citizens. Despite this spirit, life was hard, with fear and sadness. When the war ended in 1945, London needed much rebuilding. Over 70,000 buildings were destroyed and 1.7 million damaged. The city needed new plans. The new government aimed for a better life for all Britons. A key change was the National Health Service, NHS. It began on July 5, 1948, giving free health care to everyone. No other Western country had done this before. The government also started other support programs like family payments and new council homes. To help rebuild and fill job shortages, Britain invited people from other countries. On June 22, 1948, the ship Empire Windrush arrived in England. It carried nearly 500 people from the Caribbean. They came to work in the new NHS, on buses, and in factories. Many more came from places like Jamaica, Trinidad, and Barbados over the next years. These new arrivals helped London grow. However, they faced unfair treatment, including lower pay and housing problems. Despite these difficulties, the Windrush generation helped make London the diverse, multicultural city it is today. 8. The city today. Modern London is a city of exciting mixes. When you walk near the old Roman walls, you can see tall buildings made of glass reaching to the sky. These new towers are for business, with digital screens showing money moving around the world. But under them, the old streets still follow paths from many hundreds of years ago. From grand churches like St. Paul's Cathedral to modern buildings like the Shard, London shows its long story in stone, brick, and glass. Today, London faces new problems. Brexit, for example, has made some people wonder about London's place as a big financial city in Europe. Some jobs and money have moved to other cities like Dublin or Frankfurt. Climate change is another big challenge. The city needs to find new ways to be green and work in a sustainable way. The COVID-19 pandemic also changed London. For a time, many offices were empty. People wondered what the future of city life would look like. But London has faced big problems before. It has burned down, suffered from terrible sickness, and been bombed in wars. Each time, the city rebuilt itself into something new. This is London's secret. It has never stayed the same. The city's true character is its power to change. It is defined by its ability to destroy old things and build new ones. Think of it this way. The London Wall was built from stone saved after Queen Boudicca's fire. St. Paul's Cathedral grew again after the Great Fire. The Barbican Estate, a large group of buildings, stands where a big part of London was destroyed in World War II. Every time there was a disaster, it gave London a chance to reinvent itself. It had to change to survive. London's story is still being written. It is a story of destruction and new beginnings that does not stop. Will London change again? Yes, it will. It must. It always has. What will the next London look like? Will it be very different or still feel like the city we know? History tells us it will be both. It will be new and different, but somehow still the same city, anchored by its ancient Roman walls for 2,000 years. What do you think is the biggest change London will need to make in the future?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.